story behind the game is written by Clive Barker, and not only that, but the atmosphere of the game is based on its ideas, and it will be very obvious to players that the universe of the game is very consistent with the universe of other Clive Barker films and books.
Jericho is set in the Pyxis, which is the prison in which the firstborn is held. It's a dark, visceral journey into the depths of hell where you attack and destroy a multitude of horribly horrific, mutilated monsters from the dark mind of Clive Barker.
When a story comes along, I tend to meditate on it a little while, see where it seems to fit. And the more I developed Jericho, the more clear it became to me that this wanted to be a game.
It's very apparent from day one, looking at all the characters, how they interact, the world they're set in. You can see his influence from cinema and from his books and from his dark, disturbed mind. And let's face it, that's what Clive is famous for.
Y básicamente, como historia, es una historia de
The story is about a squad of soldiers,
con poderes
a team with special paranormal powers who are faced with their worst nightmare.
A la peor de sus pesadillas, ¿no?
This squad has to travel back in time to find the origins of this ancient evil.
El origen del mal, y para ello utilizan estos poderes que te digo.
You are essentially making your way through the layers of a huge corrupted onion in which a group of essentially doomed individuals, people who know they're not going to get out of this alive, go up fighting not simply as soldiers, but fighting for their souls and for the soul of the planet. The ring of crusaders who they have to battle their way through, because those crusaders are actually under the influence of the power, and they've been in there living with their own corruption and with their own, not even sure whether they're alive or dead, not even sure whether they're dreaming this or whether this is reality. And it's up to you to get in there and shape the destinies or the deaths of these characters.
El jefe del equipo es Ross, que tiene la
The
capacidad
captain of the squad of soldiers is Ross, who has unique healing powers and is the out-and-out leader.
Luego tenemos otros personajes como de armas pesadas, que son Delgado.
Then there is Sergeant Frank Delgado, who has very powerful weapons,
y además,
and also a demon encased within his arm.
Con un demonio que
This can be used in fighting the enemy,
lo utiliza para quemar
which
otros
makes him
enemigos
suffer every time it comes out.
y sufre cada vez que este ser pues sale a combatir.
We also have Church, who is a soldier with samurai abilities. She's up close and personal with the samurai sword, and she also can cast blood ward spells using her own blood, which essentially entraps all the enemies near her, and she can go up and slice their heads off or take off their limbs, which is pretty cool.
The monsters in this game will shock the audience, I'm sure about it, because we've built an FPS very intense, and where the close combat is very, very prevalent. I mean, it's in this game, monsters will try to get you all the time. This makes the game much more intense. The action is more in your face, and that's a great opportunity to show in all its glory the detail of the monsters, how horrific they are, and all the horrible wounds and self-mutilations they have performed. I mean, it's very Clive Barker.
Clive tiene una mente muy una memoria fotográfica impresionante.
The thing with Clive is that he has an amazing photographic memory. So if you show him a design that he thinks he's seen somewhere before, he straight away takes a step back and tries a new path. Throughout production, this happened with hundreds of sketches or outlines for both the squad characters and the enemies. In the case of the enemies, he wanted to preserve certain aspects and traits that were easily identifiable to any player, but also something new and original. The villains, for example, inflicting harm upon themselves to become even more powerful.
The villain, and this is to me essential, is very, very smart. Smart villains fascinate us. My villains tend to have a lot of reasons for doing what they're doing.
We have different layers of time, and the player will visit all of them because the objective is reaching the origin of all evil.
An ancient city emerged from the sea.
And you start off in modern-day Al-Khali, moving through to World War II, then into the Crusades, then into the Roman era, finishing finally into the time of the Sumerians.
Each layer of time has a completely different looking environment, completely different enemies, not only physically different, but they will attack different.
The style of each era obviously changes. For example, you work through World War II and you have monsters such as the mutilated German soldiers, where they've got flamethrowers actually melded into their body, together with grenade launchers where it replaces a complete arm, and these guys are just lobbing grenades at you to blow your squad to bits. We have 7 characters in the game. I won't spoil the storyline so you can understand the character swapping, but suffice to say, pretty much throughout the whole game, you can swap to any of the other characters. In the beginning of the game, you get introduced one by one to each of the characters. You're taught how to move into them and use their unique powers. And that mechanic works all the way through the different levels. Sometimes you're solo, sometimes you're with 3 members of the squad, but you get to use these unique, fantastic powers all the way through the game.
La mecánica del juego es
The mechanics of the game are simple, but equally somewhat complex. At the beginning, you are just one character. Then gradually, the player is introduced to the techniques of changing into another person and using their powers.
convertirse en otro personaje y cómo usar sus poderes.
Clive Barker, I have to say Clive Barker has been key to the whole development. He was involved from the very beginning, and we have had his inputs along the whole development. So it's fair to say that all his ideas have been taken into account and implemented, transformed into game mechanics or aesthetic things that have been included into the game.
En la primera parte del proceso, de toda la parte de diseño, y ha estado inmerso en ella.
In the first part of the process, design, he really immersed himself and left us to it in terms of its development. Then in terms of polishing up, he would comment on what he'd like to see as a spectator in the game, and as creator, what we needed to come up with to realize his vision.
One of the benefits of working on next-gen consoles is the detail being able to lavish into the environments and the characters. Clive is very particular about detail, and we've been able to exploit the power of next-gen consoles to realize his vision.
It's not a game possible in all platforms. It's not possible to have a fully real-time lit game with the level of quality of the monsters, number of polygons of the monsters, and all the special treatment that the textures have.
Clive
Barker's Jericho basically would not have been possible to make until recently. New technology has allowed showing things that a few years ago would have been unthinkable in both terms of cost and time.
They're coming in from everywhere.
Frank, help me!
Billy, watch out!
I don't know any other game that has 6 squad members on screen every one of them different, every one of them behaving, moving, attacking, taking cover differently, and a lot of monsters attacking at the same time, the squad. This creates kind of ballet, combat ballet, that is very, very spectacular just to watch it,
Jericho differs from other games out there by being really visceral, in your face, hard combat. There's blood, there's guts, there's gore, and it's really frantic, adrenaline pumping action from the get-go.
We've come to stop him!
Brothers, unite or flash to
Fire!
He's loose!